doing? I'm Pete, and today we're going to set up the REI Flash Air 2 tent and give you a little walkthrough on how to set it up and a little bit of commentary on how it works. Here we go. So you get a little splint to repair these poles if you need to. You get two of these. These are called hub poles. They're the hubs where your trekking poles go into. You get a toe box strut and two poles to use if you do not use trekking poles to hold up your tent. I got these little cups. These are little cough syrup cups or something, and you'll see what those are for in a minute. There's the tent. Alright, so let's get going. I also have a duplex, so I like to carry the long 9-inch because on a trekking pole tent without a frame, you're really relying on these stakes to hold in the ground even in high wind. If these stakes start pulling out, then nothing to hold your tent up. So long stakes, 9-inch, I recommend these on Amazon, pretty cheap. Alright, so the first step is to lay the tent out. And just so you can see, every corner has a webbing strap like that and a gray guy line attached. All four corners have that. So we're going to stake it out, lay the tent down, and stake out the four corners so they're all taut and like 45-degree angles from the tent. The first thing we're going to do is stake out all four corners. Okay, so for this part we're going to need a stake at all four corners. We're also going to need a stake at each vestibule side opening. And then we'll need one for the foot end and one for the head end. These all four corners of the gray lines do not have any adjustment to them. So they just have to be pulled snug. Okay, the second thing on the just following the instructions. I found that they work pretty well. We're going to put the foot pole in down at that end because before everything gets tightened up, it's easier to get it in. Now for this toe pole, got a blunt end and a pointy end. Blunt end goes in this little socket right here, little pocket, and the pointy end goes in this tab right down there. There you go. The corners are guide out by these flaps on your vestibule. Okay, to install the hub poles, you unzip, if it's zipped, unzip the rain flash. Find your sleeve, slide that in all the way, and then there's a little strap with a clip on it that clips in this little arm right there to hold that in place. Okay, we're going to start with the provided poles, and then we'll show a separate section on if you're using trekking poles. This has a blunt end on one end and a pointy end on the other end. Pointy end goes down in this eyelet right here, and the blunt end goes in the hub pole. once you've got the pole in, zip up rain fly and stake it down. So now that the door poles are in, we're going to attach the guy lines to each corner, and then we'll snug all corners up to bring the tent nice and taut. So each corner has a bathtub tie and a vestibule or rain fly or main body tie, and they both use the same stake. Now at this point, you might look straight on the side of the tent, see if your guy line for the rain fly is in line. If it's off to one side or the other, these sides of the rain fly vestibule can get droopy. You can kind of see on this side that this isn't all lined up, and this section of the rain fly is droopy, so we'll try to fix that. Now we get over here in line with it. Everything's pretty lined up, and the two sides are pretty tight. Now I'll install the foot and the head tie-outs. So there you have a quick pitch. Now there are a couple things you can go around and kind of adjust if you want at this point. If you're a perfectionist, if it's pouring rain, you're just going to dive in and not worry about it. You can see these two lines are not parallel, and that could lead to a little bit of a droopiness on one side or the other. You can reposition those. I'll do one real quick. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but now this side of the vestibule is a little tighter. This one, we could do the same thing. You can see this one's a little looser, but you get the idea. Alright, so now for entry, we unzip and Velcro. These rainfly vestibule doors have Velcro tabs on them. I think 3 of them, and then you can unzip it. One nice feature about this tent is the visibility you have here up to the sky, and a lot of vent area here goes right to the sky if it's not raining. If it is raining, you can bring the vestibule down to cover that part, And then you can still roll this up. And you can hook it right there. I've used it in the rain. Like every time I've used this tent, it's been raining. Now this is the third cloud burst we've had since we got to camp, and it's been maybe an hour and a half. And then as long as it's coming straight down, you can leave the vestibule open, and this part's covered right here. And then if it's nice evening, zip that all the way, and from inside the tent you can see out through this part. You can see the sky. The door is straight down the screen, straight down from here, so rain coming straight down or no rain, you're not going to get any rain in here. And at this point, zip that. You can roll this up and attach it if you want. I usually just kind of leave it flapping. I love these doors. These are one-handed doors. One-hand zipper. My other tents, they take two hands, and when you're laying in there, you got to reach down and hold one end in order to pull the zipper tight or to loosen it. I find this so much nicer to be able to just do it with one hand. Alright, you see the bathtub is all nice and snug, all the corners. You got a little mesh pouch right there. And the same thing on this side for your goodies. You can see the vent on that side, and there's another one here from the outside. These can be closed. This is Velcro's on there. You lay that down and then Velcro it shut like that if it's pouring rain and wind blowing that way. Otherwise, you want as much ventilation as possible. Just scoop that little strut out, and Velcro's there to hold it open. Alright, now we'll go take a look inside. These mesh panels are really nice zippers. But, not too many of those you can do one-handed like that. Toe space down there with that pole in place. Headroom. Headroom. Okay, so now we're going to trade out the standard pole that comes with the tent with a trekking pole. If you're a trekking pole hiker and you want to use your trekking poles, you can leave these at home, save a little bit of weight. That's where this little cup's going to come in. So they don't really give you a dimension if you're using trekking poles. It tells you to insert your pole into the position and then like that, collapse, and then to expand it out until everything's snug and tighten it down, lock it down. The problem with my poles is they're almost at the limit of being too long, even with this fully collapsed. And you need this to go into that socket on the hub pole. So that kind of told me I had to take this off, but in combination with that, critters, your mice, your rats, your kangaroo mice, and deer even, will smell your sweat on these straps at night, and they'll come around and start chewing on these. And I've heard of people that get up in the morning and their wrist strap is completely chewed into use, can't even be used, just destroyed by a mouse or something, because they're trying to get to that perspiration, that sweat. So when I first used this tent, I didn't want to leave these on the ground like that so the critters could get them. I thought about wrapping it in a Ziploc bag, which would have worked, but I think it's still a little too long. So I just take these off and I keep these in the tent at night. Now the problem is it exposes this end of the tent, the pole, which is kind of delicate, and that's going to be digging into the dirt, or if it's wet, it's mud, weeds, and plants. So to keep that from happening, I bring along a little cough syrup cup. You can bring this, maybe a little pill bottle, go a little higher, or you can try the Ziploc bag route. Just something to keep that from hitting the ground. And then we can adjust this out to the right length. So I'm going to try to do this with this already set up, just to show you. So we're going to loosen this one up as we can. Expose that. See if we can get this out. Yep, without taking the whole tent apart. All right, so we'll take that, set that aside, and put this in here. Now they've got a little string here that's attached to keep the bathtub from pulling away. Put our little cup under there. We'll snug this guy line back up. That's got to be, you'll figure this out up here. It's got to be, the zipper has to be on this side, the door side of the hub pole. Okay, so that is how I use my trekking pole. Now this pole here that they give you is right at 38.5 inches. You can use that as a guide to adjust the length of your trekking pole. If you need to leave your handles on to get that length, then you will have to come up with a way to protect this with a Ziploc bag or something. So when I'm folding this thing up, I like to fold it first in half, the short way, you'll see here in a second, and then again fold it in thirds in the same direction, so that when you roll it up, you're rolling it towards one of the doors, because if you roll it towards the foot or the head, you're going to wind up with a big old giant air bubble that's trapped in there. But if you go toward the door, the air can get out through the mesh and gets nice and tight. You've seen the little clips I inserted, so you know how it does in thunderstorms and some wind and rain and hail. The one thing you'll find out is it is wide this way, so you need a pretty big tent spot to set this up. It takes up almost like 3 times as much, at least twice, if not 3 times as wide as a Copper Spur 1 or something like that, or a single person tent. So you will have to be able to find a pretty big flat spot to set this up. That's about the only drawback. Well, if you made it this far, don't log off yet. Only about 25 seconds from now is the tip of the day, so hang on for a few more seconds. All right. Well, that's the basic setup of the REI Flash Air 2-person tent. Hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll sure answer them if I can. Been a good tent for me, especially on a couple of trips within the rain and the hail, and it really passed the test. So that's the tent. Hope you liked it. See you next time. Last tip of the day. Can't tell you how many tent stakes I found in campgrounds people left behind. I always count. Like, I always carry 10. So I always make sure I have 10 stakes. Got all 10. And in they go. If you're only carrying the minimum and you lose one or break one, you're going to want that extra stake. So, tip of the day, count your tent stakes before you put them in your sack, or someone like me will come along behind you and get them. And I found some pretty expensive titanium tent stakes that were left behind. So